A gracious good day to one and all once again. 'Tis I, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico. Back with you for episode number 102 of Emperor Norton's fantastic history vlog. Today is July 23rd, 2020. It is our 128th day under COVID-19 restrictions. A little housekeeping for yesterday. We sincerely apologize for the audio quality yesterday. It's always a bit dicey when we come to you from the Imperial Gardens, and yesterday was no exception. When we got out there to begin with taping, everything was fine. Then the wind came up. We get terrible winds here in this part of the Empire. So hopefully you could hear everything yesterday, especially that tribute to the Fire Sign Theater. But if not, let me know. I'll let you know what I said. How's that sound? Leave a comment below. Let's begin with our national days. Today is National Vanilla Ice Cream Day. We kind of like Jamocha almond fudge ourselves, but people do have their preferences, yes indeed. It is International Yada 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 Day. Now, that will make sense if you're a fan of the sitcom Seinfeld, and if not, you're gonna have to look it up. And Gorgeous Grandma Day. Well, to all of our grandmas out there, we wish you well, and you're all gorgeous. How's that sound? It sounds good to me. In our Florida Man segment today, and this is probably the most Florida Man one we have come across so far. We'll talk about why in a moment. You might want to take the kids out of the room for a second. Florida man bites off his brother's penis after he walks in on his brother having sex with his cousin on his favorite Dragon Ball Z blanket. Okay, so we've got sex, we've got violence, and we've got Dragon Ball Z. I don't know what could make that more Florida man unless there was a crocodile or something involved. Who knows? Our San Francisco story today, as we so often do, we're relying on John Ralston's wonderful book, This Date in San Francisco. Because on July 23rd, 1877, that mobs rampaged against Chinese white businessmen organized for self-protection. Chinese immigrants made major contributions to the American settlement of California. A first wave of about 25,000, mostly indentured servants, arrived from Canton in the gold rush. Chinese worked in the mines where they were taxed and discriminated against, in laundries, as domestics, and in cigar factories. When construction of the Transcontinental Railroad began, Charles Crocker of the Big Four, after experimenting successfully with a 50-man Chinese work crew, hired 10,000 Chinese to build the Central Pacific Railroad from California to Utah. After the railroad's completion, Chinese workers worked in agriculture, mining, construction, fisheries, canneries, lumber mills. Although they were reliable, hard workers, by the 1870s they suffered severe discrimination and restricted housing. In San Francisco, over 47,000 Chinese were crammed into a few blocks of Chinatown, bounded by Broadway on the north, Mason and Kearny streets on the west and east, and California on the south. Chinese outside Chinatown were fair game for harassment and violence. Mark Twain, as a reporter on The Call, saw a Chinese man going about his business getting horribly beaten by a gang of toughs. In the late 1870s, the United States was in a severe recession. The Panic of 1873 had caused bankruptcies, foreclosures, business failures, 14% unemployment, and reduced hours by workers lucky enough to keep their jobs. San Francisco had been hit by the collapse of the Nevada silver boom, in which far too many citizens had speculated, had seen the failure of the Bank of California, and suffered psychological trauma by the mysterious death of William C. Ralston. That's a whole other show. As if all that wasn't bad enough, 1876 to 1877 was a drought year. Crops failed, livestock died for lack of water. As Chinese supposedly worked for lower wages than whites blamed them for their troubles. A political advertisement of the People's Reform and Anti-Chinese Party in The Call for July 22nd said, quote, "We hold that Chinese immigration now flowing in upon us in rapidly increasing volume is fraught with the most momentous danger that has ever menaced the social and political well-being of our people. And we demand from our municipal and state authorities to exercise of such powers as they possess to discourage this overshadowing evil. We hold it greater grievance than slavery to be thrust upon the people of this sparsely populated coast Chinese coolies, and to demand national legislation to prevent it and to discourage Chinese immigration. They would get that legislation in, I believe it was 1882, 83, I think it was 82, the Chinese Exclusion Act. On Monday, July 23rd, 1877, thousands of white laborers incited by the news from Pittsburgh and joined by Tufts, that's Pittsburgh, California, not that these needed any excuse, torched a Chinese laundry at Turk and Leavenworth streets and trashed others. When firemen arrived, their hoses were cut. Chinatown was invaded, doors kicked in, windows shattered. San Francisco's 250-man police force was hopelessly outnumbered. The next day, on July 24th, a businessman's committee met in the Merchants Exchange building. Attendees included Sugar King Klaus Spreckles, banker Darius O. Mills, the Mills building, cable car pioneer Andrew Halliday, and Mayor Andrew Bryant. While some of the attendees may have sympathized with Chinese, most were motivated by self-interest. San Francisco's buildings were mostly wood, and if the mobs torched Chinese businesses, the whole city might go down with them. A committee of safety was organized with William T. Coleman, who led the Vigilantes in 1856 as president. 6,000 men were enrolled and about $75,000 was subscribed. Arms and ammunition were furnished by gun shop owners and by the armory at Benicia. Coleman also telegraphed Governor William Irwin, who came down to San Francisco, and President Hayes, asking for warships to be sent down from Mare Island. The firearms notwithstanding, Coleman decided to equip his troops with less lethal, although still dangerous, weapons. 6,000 hickory pick handles were purchased to be used as clubs. The Committee of Safety became known as the Pick Handle Brigade. On the night of Tuesday the 24th, a laundry at Greenwich and Divisadero was torched. When firemen cleared the ruins, they found the incinerated body of a Chinese man. On July 25th, another mob attacked the Pacific Mail Steamship Company docks near the foot of Brannan Street, where Chinese immigrants were landed and set nearby lumber yards afire. Fire companies came, but this time they were helped by both police and the Pick Handle Brigade. After several hours of fighting and shooting, the mob was dispersed. In a few days, the city was calm. The warships went back to Mare Island, and the arms and ammunition were returned to the armory. The Chinese issue, however, still boiled. Ironically, Dennis Kearney, an Irish immigrant drayman and member of the Pick Handle Brigade, would become a leader of the Working Men's Party of California, a leading anti-Chinese agitator who blamed wealthy capitalists for importing them and preferring them over whites. Kearney would harangue sandlots with the slogan, "The Chinese must go," and once marched a crowd up Nob Hill to Charles Crocker's mansion, threatening to hang him. Now, as you may know, we stood up for the Chinese. There's a couple stories about that. There's, of course, the famous story where I stood between a group of defenseless Chinese and a group of rowdies bent on attacking them, raised my hands, recited the Lord's Prayer, dispersing the crowd. Now, that story has come under some controversy. It's very possible that it did not happen. There is further evidence that the incident that the historians were referring to that I did was breaking up one of Dennis Kearney's sandlot meetings. And there's actually newspaper clippings to support that premise. Nonetheless, I was a great champion of human rights, not only sticking up for the Chinese, African Americans, fair play for Native Americans, and I was an early advocate of the vote for women. One more point, of course, we know that anti-Chinese sentiment still runs deep in our society, encouraged by people referring to the COVID-19, the coronavirus, as the Chinese virus. This does no good. It just foments more hostility. And we hope that that stops very soon. But there is a popular misconception that Kearney Street in San Francisco was named after the racist Dennis Kearney. And this is not true. And there have been efforts to rename the street because of that. Kearny Street is actually named for General Stephen Kearny, who served as military governor of California after the Mexican-American War. So we don't need to rename Kearny Street. They are not honoring Dennis Kearny, and anything that does honor Dennis Kearny should not be done, absolutely. Well, let's move on to our other history. There's not a lot today, so we make up for it with our San Francisco story and also the births and deaths today, because there were a lot. It was on this date in 1965, the Beatles song Help is released in the UK, of course the theme song from their film Help. 1973, U.S. President Richard Nixon refuses to release Watergate tapes of conversations in the White House relevant to the Watergate investigation. I wonder why. 2019, Boris Johnson is chosen the new British Prime Minister by the ruling Conservative Party to replace Theresa May. And also in 2019, the U.S. Senate passes a bill championed by comedian Jon Stewart to ensure 911 First Responders Fund never runs out of money. Jon Stewart had to go before Congress and shame them into taking care of the people who were the first responders in the attacks of 9/11. And that was just a very shameful thing that he had to do that, but he did it. Thank you, Jon Stewart. Well, our births today. 1888, author Raymond Chandler, mystery writer. 1892, Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia. Hats off to all other emperors, as long as they don't come and take my throne, or our throne, pardon me, the imperial we. We sometimes forget that. 1894, Arthur Treacher. Well, that may not be a name that's familiar to you, unless you used to watch the Merv Griffin show, because he was, Arthur Treacher was Merv's sidekick. He was a British gentleman, TV announcer, of course. But here's a little factoid for you. He also parlayed his fame from the Merv Griffin show into a restaurant chain, Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. It was very popular for a few years, a competitor to H. Salt Fish and Chips. At one point, in the late 1970s, there were 800 stores. As of November 2019, there are only believed to be 7 standalone stores remaining, 3 in Ohio, 2 in New York, and 2 in New Jersey. So my friends on the East Coast, I don't think I know anybody in Ohio, but I do have friends and family in New York and New Jersey, so send some fish and chips our way. We'd appreciate it. Moving on, 1921. Calvert DeForest, a name you may not know, unless you're a fan of David Letterman and you know him as Larry Bud Melman. Oh, those were wonderful, wonderful skits that he did on Letterman, usually not having the slightest idea what he was saying. I think my 2 favorites would be when he handed out warm towels to people coming off the buses at the Port Authority, or Toast on a Stick. Everything's better on a stick, isn't it? Yes. Moving on, 1925, American musical actress Gloria DeHaven. 1933, actor, game show host Bert Convy. 1936, Anthony Kennedy, the 160th U.S. Supreme Court Justice. 1943, Tony Joe White, American rocker, Polk Salad Annie. Greater got you, Granny. Chomp, chomp. Like that song. 1946, Andy McKay, saxophonist and oboist for one of our favorite bands, Roxy Music. I am hard-pressed to think of another band that had an oboist. And if you've never listened to the music of Roxy Music, they're one of the greats. Check it out. One of our favorite bands, for sure. 1961, Martin Gore, another English rocker, Depeche Mode. 1961, actor Woody Harrelson. Boy, what a commitment to character he has, huh? And 1965, guitarist Slash from Guns N' Roses. Real name, Saul Hudson, known for wearing a top hat. 1967, actor Philip Seymour Hoffman. 1973, Monica Lewinsky with the blue dress fame. 1989, actor Daniel Radcliffe, of course, known for his portrayal of Harry Potter, but he's kind of moved beyond that now, so let's stop calling him Harry Potter so he can get on with his life. That'd be good. Deaths, 1875, Isaac Singer, American inventor, invented the first practical home sewing machine. 1885, General Ulysses S. Grant, 18th President of the United States. I've heard he's buried in Grant's tomb, but don't quote me on that. 1948, film director D.W. Griffith. 1951, Robert Flaherty, American filmmaker, father of the documentary film, believed to be the first documentary film, Nanook of the North, groundbreaking film. 1966, great actor, Monty Montgomery Clift. Oh, he's so good. 1973, Eddie Rickenbacker, American aviator, ace of the aces in World War I. 1982, Vic Morrow, American actor, was killed by a helicopter crash during the filming of Twilight Zone, the movie. Two other actors, young actors, Vietnamese if I remember right, also perished that day. In 1985, Kay Kaiser, band leader Kay Kaiser, and his Kaiser's College of Musical Knowledge. That's getting kind of obscure, I know. 2011, singer Amy Winehouse, singer and songwriter Amy Winehouse, dies of alcohol poisoning and joins the 27 Club because so many rock stars seem to die at the age of 27. And 2012, Sally Ride, the first American astronaut and first American woman astronaut in space. I'm having a little electrical trouble today. I don't know if you've noticed the flashing, but hopefully it doesn't show up too badly. Well, that wraps it up for this edition. We are accepting tips now, especially with our unemployment running out very soon. So if you would like to leave a tip, you can either do a monthly subscription on Patreon, information right there, or leave a one-time tip on PayPal. Everything's right there. Until we see you again, stay safe, stay inside, stay healthy. If you do go outside, wear a mask. We can't emphasize this enough. Just seeing a whole lot of stupidity out there still. We are deeply disappointed. Don't take unproven cures. Until we see you again, a gracious